And now, you're tuned in to All Factors Considered. Here are your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
What's going on, folks? Welcome back to another episode of All Factors Considered. Today we're breaking it down. The big one, it crept up on us, but here we are, UFC 261, and we are proudly presented with the smooth sounds that's going to really bring us in to the action at hand, man. So let me do it. Let me bring in my co-host, AJ. AJ, what's happening, brother? Listen, man, this is a very exciting opportunity for us right now because we got 3 titles on the line here, first and foremost, right? But I want to say this, AJ. It's fair to say that Weili Zhang, Magnum, fighting out of China, and Rose Namajunas, that is probably the most highly anticipated bout on the UFC 261 card. So I want to ask you off the bat, AJ, what does that say about women's MMA in 2021, right? You know, like it was only about a decade ago that Dana White said, hey, man, women will never fight on the UFC roster, man. So just give me some takes. What do you think?
Well, it's crazy to see that because even how long ago was Ronda Rousey really the first one to come on the scene, you know, until the preacher's daughter did her thing. Yeah. But man, it's really, we've seen not even a resurgence. We've seen just an explorative growth in women's MMA, and they're starting to really become fierce competitors, not only in the sense of technical prowess, but also in power, man. And it's crazy to see both the growth of MMA, but even women's MMA is almost growing at a faster rate. It's cool.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, man. It's a great thing to see because we got the Nigerian Nightmare facing off against game-bred Jorge Masvidal, 3-piece in a soda, you know what I'm saying? Hit him with the biscuit and everything, get that soda on the side. So just to say that, like, this is the most highly anticipated bout is definitely for me. I don't know for everybody, but over Usman versus Masvidal number 2, it just goes to show a lot, man, because 10 years ago, man, you couldn't have told nobody, hey, man, we're going to put on this, like, you know, ladies fight, and this is going to be the banger of the night, you know what I'm saying? But we do know Weili Zhang, she's coming off of a huge victory, a war with Joanna Jędrzejczyk, who just, I think she just let, I forget who's name, Sean Shelby, I think he's the matchmaker for UFC. She was like, hey man, the baddest bitch in sports is back. We ready. I love it. Joanna's one of my favorite fighters. But folks, a little record recap. You already know what it is, 35-37. Enjoyed my lead while it lasted, but we back at 500. But after this weekend, that might change. That definitely might change. Who knows? We'll see. But let's do what we do best, AJ. Let's get into some sleepers, man. So
it's time for some fight night.
If you ain't paying attention, you're gonna sleep on me and I'm gonna wake you up.
All right, the clock has started. AJ, who's your first sleeper for UFC 261?
Man, UFC 261. This one's a big one, Derick. And I'm going to keep my sleepers a little short so we can have a lot of time for the main card. But for this first one, I got Zhang versus Rodrigo Vargas. Now, apologies on the name for all these Chinese fighters. I'm gonna fuck shit up, but it's all right because Zhang, he's the WLF champion, making his UFC debut, and WLF is a huge fighting organization out of China, and he's got all the Chinese eyes watching. He's got all that pressure as long as fans back in the stadium, man. So he's going to be fighting with that very high pride of China as well as the chaos that comes with him fighting, man. It's going to be a fun recipe for a fight. Now, Rodrigo Vargas, man, is potentially fighting for his contract, okay? He's lost 2, and his last one was a DQ, but he threw it because he threw a vicious knee to a dude's face while he was on the ground. And let me tell you, man, Rodrigo Vargas, man, he brings that heat, he brings that fire, and it's going to make for one hell of a fight. Now, that being said, this is a sleeper to me because both these fighters push the pace and bring the fight, and with little to no notoriety, this is what makes it a sleeper.
Yeah, man, I'm with you. I'm really excited to see the return of, you know, Kazula, Rodrigo Vargas, man. This dude, he's got that intensity, the ferocity, if that's even a word, right? I love to see it, man. We need more fighters like that. But I'm going to have to go right there with you, AJ, man. My first sleeper is, this is going to be a match between Kaling Aori. Apologies, folks. Like I said, we messing up on the names today, man. But this is another fighter who is coming out of the Shanghai Performance Institute out there in China. He's actually the 3rd graduate from the Shanghai PI. So it's like, it goes to show the Chinese fighters are really making a name, and they're really starting to move in droves over here to the UFC. But he's fighting a killer, man. He's a killer fighting out of Glory MMA and Fitness by the name of Jeffrey Molina, man. And I'll just say this, man. Jeffrey Molina trains under the great James Krause, right? And prior to his last win, which was a decision win in Dana White Contender Series, he's on a 6-fight finish streak, man. Not win streak, but finish streak. So it's both of those things in tandem. However, this submission artist in Jeffrey Molina, like I just said, Aori, this dude's nickname is the Mongolian Murderer, and I have to back anybody who has a badass nickname like that, dude. I love that. And AJ, man, I just wanted to say this to you really quickly, man. Is it not crazy? Because you were all talking about all these fighters. We got to give a spotlight really quickly because I wanted to talk about it just really quickly. I'll move on to my next sleeper. But we got 3 fighters, actually. One of them already made his UFC debut, but 3 fighters that are coming out of that league that you were talking about, that WFL, is called like Wars.
WLF, the Wolf.
There we go, right? Coming out of there right now. So it goes to show that like somebody from the UFC went over there and said, oh, I like what I see. We're going to bring y'all over. Weili Zhang, she was the big catalyst that I think is really propelling, saying, hey, we need to bring more Chinese fighters over. And we might start seeing something similar to the NBA where, we kind of just get that whole entire farm system from overseas, bringing them in and make it a truly, truly international sport. Because sometimes we do get top heavy with the USA fighters. But nonetheless, Jeffrey Molina, I'm going to finish my sleeper off. Jeffrey Molina, this dude, 3 of his 4 submissions are rear naked choke, so he's taking the Rose Namajunas strategy, which is I'm going to punch him in the face, take their back, and choke him out. It's going to be a banger, folks. Definitely tune in, free on ESPN. AJ, who's your next sleeper?
Next up, Derek, I got Batrigai Dana versus Kevin Natividad. And I have another hard name to say, but Dana, this dude's fighting out of Jackson Wink, so I really need not say anymore. But I will, okay? Because Dana is well-rounded, but prefers to strike and hits like a truck, okay? With half his wins coming from early KO finishes. Now, Kevin Natividad, he's had a rough outing in his UFC for his UFC debut because he got caught with a late uppercut after having a great fight. But he's here to bang and he's here to pressure, and it's a lot of fun. This is a sleeper to me because I'm predicting a stand-up battle for both of these fighters. They are both on the come up, looking to make big names for themselves, and no better way to do that than a $50K payday in front of a whole bunch of screaming fans. Who's your second sleeper, Derek?
All right, AJ. So my last sleeper for this UFC 261 showdown is going to be a matchup between Carl Roberson and Brendan Allen, man. And Brendan Allen, this dude is a killer. So I'm really talking about this as a sleeper because both these fighters are coming off of losses, but Brendan Allen has an opportunity to catapult himself into making some real deal noise, man. This dude's got a hit list of a hit list. His last loss, which was his last fight, was to the mean Sean Strickland. And you can't really knock that because Sean Strickland is a monster, but he got a win over Kyle Dawkins, right? We love talking about them Dawkins brothers. He got a win over Tom Breeze. We love talking about Tom Breeze on this show. Got a win over Big Mouth Kevin Holland back when he was Trailblazer, not Big Mouth. And he's got a win over individual, I forget his first name, but Jeffrey submission win. This dude's a killer. You cannot mess around with this dude when you're on the ground because he is a submission artist. He's got 8 submission victories of his 15 professional MMA wins. But Carl Roberson, this is a sleeper because this dude is he's been underperforming since he got into the UFC. He earned his UFC contract by knocking out Ryan Spann in 15 seconds. And if you know who Ryan Spann is, that's a very impressive victory. And he knocked him out with elbows. So what that tells me is that if Brendan Allen shoots in on Carl Roberson the wrong way, you're eating elbows all day and you're going to sleep. So that's why this is a sleeper to me. It's because Brendan Allen could catapult himself and because he's such a wizard on the ground, but Carl Roberson can make you pay with one-shot power. So it's going to be interesting. Roberson's 30, Brendan Allen is 25. So you got somebody who really needs to make it happen in Roberson versus somebody who can really, fast track his career. And Brendan Allen, tune in, folks. It's going to be a banger. But that's it for the sleepers, right, AJ? So let's move on.
Here's to another main card breakdown, courtesy of your hosts, Derek G and AJ.
All right, AJ, man, we're going to start off from the bottom, right? So we got a hell of a card here, 3 championship fights, and then 2 fights that are actually very solid. And I'm not going to lie, they probably could headline like a fight night just in and of himself, right? But let's talk about it, man. We got the Lionheart. We got an old lion in Anthony Smith facing off against a young dog in Jimmy Crute, man. I'll set the table. Anthony Smith, 34-16 in his MMA career, which is a lot more experience than the 12-1 record of Jim Crute. However, Jim Crute, very balanced, 5 knockouts, 4 submissions, 3 decisions. Anthony Smith, 18 knockouts, 13 submissions, 2 decisions, man. So we got a very vast contrast here, first and foremost. But we got 2 BJJ black belts on our hands, and let's start it off, man. What interests you about this matchup? Because in my opinion, while this is a matchup that I feel like kind of needed to happen, but respectively for both of these fighters' careers, I just think that this is a lot of pressure to put on Jimmy Crute, especially first fight back since, COVID and all, not having fans. How much pressure is on Jimmy Crute for this matchup, AJ?
A lot, especially because Lionheart kind of did, he had his fall after John Jones, and then he suffered the devastating loss to Glover Teixeira. He did get that Gustafson rear naked choke at the end of the fight. That was a hard fight, man. Yeah. So Lionheart has been kind of on this up and down journey, trying to stay afloat, trying not to get cut from the UFC. Where Jimmy Crute, man, I feel like a lot of the pressure's on him. because he needs to take a Lionheart out. He needs to finish him. He needs to take this old dog out to pasture and put an end to it. It's sad to say, but that's kind of what's on the docket for Jimmy Crute. Now, to me, both of these fighters, man, you kind of said it perfectly at the beginning when you said it's a old lion versus young dog. Because, man, Anthony Smith and Jimmy Crute share a lot of the same attributes to me. Very well-rounded, both hit very hard. BJJ black belts. This is going to be a mix-em up, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. Who would you give the advantage to?
I have to say off the bat, I have to give the athleticism, just the primeness, the youngness, the rawness in Jimmy Crute, because this dude is an animal, man, and he's steamrolling the opposition. Like I just said, man, or I didn't just say it, but let's talk about his last 5 really quickly, right? He knocked out Modestas Bukauskas first round. That's pretty incredible. He got a submission win against a dude who looked very, very impressive in Mikhail Alexichuk, man. That dude's a boxer. That dude got hands, man. So to submit him in the first round is impressive. Lost to Misha Serkinov, which was really the big mark on him. But other than that, man, he knocked out Sam Alvey, which we know how hard that is to do as well. And he submitted Paul Craig, the Bear Jew, who nobody submits. I mean, a couple people submit, but nobody really submits, man. So this dude's been on a tear. Now, Anthony Smith, you mentioned it earlier, but we could be having a completely different narrative right now, AJ, had he not had such a honorable method of looking at the game, right? He's so honorable. He says, I will not win a championship based off of a fake injury because I can still compete. Even though I got hit with an illegal strike by the champion, I have every right to not continue and get the gold. I won't. And I respect that. I respect that so much more about Anthony Smith because he doesn't get the legacy that Aljamain Sterling has, which nobody really credits the man as a champion. Now his stock is actually lowered because people are feeling the type of way like, oh, you could have continued. You're a faker. You're an actor. He's kind of fed into it in Aljo Sterling. But at the end of the day, man, I think his stock has dropped. So Anthony Smith, man, we could be talking about a champion right now. We totally could, but we're not. And though he did lose a couple, right? Glover Teixeira, he lost to Alexander Rakic, which with that Rakic fight really was a fight that appeared to me one that Anthony Smith just went on autopilot, man. It was just a weird outing. But he bounced back against Devin Clark and showed that, hey, man, just because you're a wrestler doesn't mean anything. Don't forget, my ground game is impeccable. I submitted Devin Clark, or I didn't, but Anthony Smith submitted Devin Clark, and that's very impressive. And that's a testament, AJ, to how I think this fight's going to go. So I don't think that Anthony Smith will enjoy the luxury of the advantage on the ground like he does against most of his opponents. I don't believe that. However, one thing that I do believe is that Anthony Smith, he is, like I just mentioned, the record 34-16, 9-6 in the UFC, right? Did you know that for Jimmy Crute, 9 of his 13 fights took place in Australia? 9 of them, right? He's only had 4 fights outside of Australia, right? I don't even think all of them were in America. Yes, he is a former Hex Series light heavyweight champion because that's the league that he fought in prior, but the Big Show experience is so vastly different. And this is something that I'm going to hit on too when we talk about Weili Zhang versus Rose Namajunas. But nonetheless, Anthony Smith is a 5-time Performance of the Night winner and a 1-time Fight of the Night winner, man. You can't sit here and bet against the experience of Anthony Smith, so I think that he's going to be crafty enough to kind of just say, hey, man, I'm the old chisel vet. You're the rookie in the game, man. There's still a couple tricks up my sleeve that you don't know. So for that reason, I think that the ground game will be nullified, but the striking is where we got to watch out for, especially in the clinch. Now, you tell me, man, I think the clinch is going to be very important in this fight, and it's going to have a lot to do with the takedown defense of Anthony Smith, because Jimmy Crute, he shoots in, man. He averages 4 takedowns per 15 minutes at a 75% clip, which is pretty crazy. So where do you think this fight is going to take place at the most? Is the ground game nullified? Is it going to be a kickboxing match?
I genuinely think so because of their prowess on the ground, man. Both being BJJ black belts as well as takedown defense. And we saw in the Devin Clark fighting without Anthony Smith, man. That takedown defense is fine, and even if he does get taken down, or if he does the taking down, he knows how to roll. He knows how to get to the most advantageous positions. Personally, for me though, man, this is really one of those coin toss fights. I genuinely don't know because we're either going to get a complete stand-up battle or we're going to get a complete, a ground game Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu match because they're both so good at each. It could either be like, hey, our techniques are going to cancel each other out, or, hey, let's actually just scrap it out and see who does the best of which. It's so hard to say with Anthony Smith and especially Jimmy Crute too, because they can take it wherever they want. So genuinely, Derick, I'm more often than not saying like, oh yeah, this will for sure do this. This one's a hard one, man. Personally, I would like to see the up and down. I'd like to see the battle back and forth. I think it's going to get canceled out, and I kind of think they're going to end up on the ground, personally.
That's interesting, right? Because I think that Anthony Smith, I mean, I know he enjoys 2 inches in height and 2 inches in reach in terms of an advantage against Jimmy Crute. So I think that this is going to be one of those fights where Anthony Smith, being the veteran that he is, knows how to squeak out wins, right? Jimmy Crute, you look at his last 5, all 5 of his last 5 fights have been finishes, whether it was win or lose. So when you see a dude who you hit a man with all of your strength, all of your muster, and he doesn't go down, that demoralizes you, right? And I don't think Jimmy Crute has enough experience to kind of understand that yet. Like I said, he was a regional champion, but the UFC is a different game. And Anthony Smith, this is one of these fights where I think the UFC is starting to say, okay, Anthony, I know you had some mental stuff going on, right? We do have to talk about, he did have his house, broken into. Dude had to have a standoff against like a dude on meth or some crazy shit. You know what I mean? But that like kind of clouds up your focus, right? You're not completely going to be focused on the task at hand when you had such craziness. Yeah, he said he had to kind of tackle his own demons, and one of those demons that he had in that kind of house robbery situation was that he's a professional fighter. He's a former title challenger, and during that time, he was like scared for his life and said it was like the hardest fight of his entire life, harder than anything he's dealt with in MMA in the octagon, because octagon, it's a sport, right? That was real life. That you don't know if this dude has a weapon. It's dark. He's in your home. You feel violated. So ultimately, I think that a couple injuries have been able to, he's been able to surpass a couple injuries. He's been able to surpass a couple mental injuries. And I think now he's focused on the task at hand, because the UFC is saying, all right, Anthony, listen, we're going to put you in that gatekeeper status. You know what I mean? As long as you're sticking around in the UFC, we're going to feed you to the young guns to see who is going to advance, because the UFC ultimately is a gauntlet. So let's round this one up, AJ. Give me your pick and why.
Oh, man, this one's a coin toss to me, Derick. I'm a big fan of both of these fighters. I think Jimmy Crute is a grinder. I think he's going to work really hard, and I definitely think Anthony Smith is going to lean on the experience. He has to. But personally, for me, I'm going Jimmy Crute with a KO round 3, super late in the fight. I think it's going to be up and down and a battle back and forth. Potentially, I'll save that for later.
Yeah, no doubt. So I'm going to go Anthony Smith on this one. And the reason why I'm going Anthony Smith on this one is because I keep hearing all this talk about, well, Jimmy Crute, he's in the, he's on the elevator or escalator going up, and Anthony Smith's on the escalator going down, and they're just at 2 different stages of their career. But people forget Anthony Smith is 32 years old, dude. That's the prime of your career. Like, to sit here and say he's washed up, he's an old dog. Like, yeah, he's older, right? But he only enjoys 7 years in terms of elder age, right? I just watched John Wayne Parr get knocked out at 44-year-old fighting in a Muay Thai contest over there and won championship, bro. That's old dog. I think Anthony Smith still got some fight in him. For that reason, I'm going Anthony Smith, grind out, win, decision, loss, looking to demoralize the man. I think he's looking to demoralize the young vet, man. So let's move on to the next one, man. This one is a rematch in the making. This is a rematch like 10 years in the making, even more, 11 years, right? We got the return of Uriah Hall versus Chris Weidman, which was about that I think was going to take place a couple weeks back, but someone got COVID or injured or something, so that, got shelved for a little bit. But we're back. And listen, man, Uriah Hall, what do we say about the man? He's a Kyokushin karate second-degree black belt under Tiger Schulman's MMA. 2 times performance of the night winner. He's the Ultimate Fighter 17 knockout of the season, which everyone remembers. It was like a spinning hook kick or spinning heel kick or something crazy like that. But AJ, allow me, if you will, to rant for just one quick second. I'm not even going to go solo screen on this one. I just want to get off my rant, and I want you to join me on this one. I feel like this sport of, what have you done for me lately, has gotten out of hand recently, man. Do people not remember who the fuck Chris Weidman is? The All-American, the dude who beat Anderson Silva twice, the individual who just won against Omari Akhmedov. And believe it or not, I've heard people talk about, oh, that was a little layup that they gave to Weidman. Omari Akhmedov, bro. That dude is a beast. He's a savage. He's a killer. And to hear something like that was ridiculous. But now I got to go solo because, listen, man, this man has a win over Kelvin Gastelum, a submission round 3 win over Kelvin Gastelum. We understand and we realize how hard it is to get Kelvin Gastelum out of there if it's not a decision. The Joker, Jack Hermanson, that doesn't count. That was just a quick little heel hook. We don't know what happened there. But nonetheless, that win over Gastelum was very impressive. Yeah, he's lost to Gregor Mousasi, not in the UFC anymore. Jacare Souza, soon to not be in the UFC anymore, and Dominic Reyes, man. These dudes are all pretty much at the heap of the pack, right? And now we take a step back and we say, okay, well, AJ, what happens when 2 people face off in a rematch for the most of the time? It's kind of chalky, right? Generally, the winner of the first fight wins the rematch, generally. Not a law or a given rule or whatever. But at the end of the day, man, both of these fighters are 36 years old. Uriah Hall, hopefully he's going to want to get this one back, because that fight, let me just preface context, folks, for people who don't know what we're talking about. Chris Weidman defeated Uriah Hall for the 185-pound belt at Ring of Combat back in 2010, man. So this is dude who's been living in a man's mind for quite some time. Because you come to think about it, Uriah Hall 17-9. I mean, listen, that's one of your 9 losses. You know you got that one knocked down. So let's talk about this one, AJ, man. Uriah Hall clearly has a striking advantage, and Chris Weidman clearly has a wrestling advantage. This is a classic striker versus grappler matchup. However, one fighter, I think, in Uriah Hall. Let's talk about this, AJ. Uriah Hall, can we say that after he came off of Tough 17, had the big KO, he was supposed to be a star? He's kind of underperformed, right, in his UFC career. He's 9-7, very close to 500. Chris Weidman, even though he's been around forever, this dude's only 11-5 in the UFC, or only 11-5, but he's 11-5 in the UFC, 15-5 is his MMA career. How's this fight playing out to you, AJ? I gotta say this too, if I sound a little harsh. Uriah Hall is in my doghouse still. He has been for a couple of fights now. This dude just doesn't throw, and I can't get behind a fighter who doesn't throw. So how does this fight play out to you?
That's one of the biggest things I have against him, man, is he'll literally sit back, and he caught a lot of flack for it in the Anderson Silva fight. He just didn't get off. He has such like amazingly heavy hands, as well as this precise striking and these counter striking shots he can hit you with. He just doesn't let it go. And I think against this fight, he really needs to. He's fighting another Hall of Fame fighter in Chris Weidman. And I'm hoping he doesn't hold back. That's a big thing. I'm hoping he doesn't, because Uriah Hall needs to start fast, control the fight, because if not, man, we're gonna see Chris Weidman having an amazingly long wrestling match, which, don't get me wrong, Chris Weidman, like you said, an All-American, hell of a fighter, and he'll put a hurting to you. He's not as boring as some of the other wrestlers out there, but to win is a win, and he will win doing that like he has many a time, just taking you down to the ground, hold you down, and beat you up. That's exactly what Uriah Hall needs to avoid. And to be honest, man, I'm going for him in this one. I'll let the cat out of the bag a little. I got Uriah Hall winning this one, because I really genuinely think he's had enough of being on the shelf. He's had enough of being the guy in the shadow. And even if, let's say, he doesn't get a dominant win over Chris Weidman, he still might be in the shadow, because now they're just 1-1. And you're going against an all-time dog like Chris Weidman. So I think really a lot of the cards are stacked against Uriah Hall, and he needs to put out one hell of a performance to actually gain some crowd fandom, really. What do you think? Who has it going?
Well, I think Chris Weidman has the advantage in this one. One, because his last 5 have been much higher level strength of schedule. AJ, did you know that all 3 of Uriah Hall, he's on a 3-fight win streak, and all 3 of his last fights, those fighters are no longer in the UFC. So Anderson Silva, not in the UFC. Antonio Carlos Jr., not in the UFC. Bevon Lewis, not in the UFC. Like, these dudes are all out, right? So it's like, who are you fighting? You're fighting dudes who aren't even in the big show no more. Omari Akhmadov, Dominic Reyes, and Jacare Souza. That sounds a lot scarier to me. But at the end of the day, AJ, this is what it's going to come down to. Chris Weidman has the advantage because he's a former NCAA D1 wrestler, and he knows how to make a fight ugly. If this is a dog fight, we have to go Chris Weidman. If this is an ugly, rough, just dog fight, yeah, All-American all day. Now, if this is clean, and if Uriah Hall can keep, you know what I'm saying, Weidman at a distance and just pick him off at range, yeah, we're going to have some trouble, because, like we said, one counter shot from Uriah Hall can put you away, absolutely. Now, he does enjoy a 51% striking accuracy, but this dude lands 3 significant strikes per minute, right? This dude doesn't throw he just does not throw that much, you know what I mean? Chris Weidman, he almost averages the same significant strikes landed per minute, and this dude is looking to wrestle you the entire fight. So, at the end of the day, when you get a little bit older, AJ, I think it's just like Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, right? Once you get older, this is a former champion in Chris Weidman, you have to start adjusting your game. And he can't necessarily rely on the athleticism and the explosiveness that he could when he was in his mid-20s or whatever. But one thing that he can do is he can say, all right, I know how to bait out a feint from you. Or I can feint, bait out a shot, and then counter that shot, smother you, get in your face, not let you enjoy that 79-inch reach, because they got almost an identical reach. Chris Weidman got 78-inch reach. So I think dogfight, we got to go Chris Weidman. If it's clean, we got to go Uriah Hall. But I'm going to be honest with you, AJ. I'm just not very excited for this fight because of Uriah Hall. I feel like if we had a more game, someone who's really willing to throw against Chris Weidman, you'll still see a banger fireworks show, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, I'm going Chris Weidman, unanimous decision, grind out victory. He's a former Hofstra University, you know what I'm saying, alumni, and listen, this is a BJJ black belt. That's the other thing we don't really take into consideration. Did you know that Chris Weidman is a BJJ black belt under one of the most prestigious instructors of all time, right? Renzo Gracie and Matt Serra, right? So we got Uriah Hall, who's a BJJ blue belt. If this thing gets down to the mat and we're really doing some jiu-jitsu, it's going to be a long, long night for Uriah Hall. So I don't want to sound too biased, folks, but I am biased on this one, man. Uriah Hall, you're in my doghouse, and until you start throwing, it's gonna be tough getting out of there, man. But let's move on to something that actually counts here now. All right, man. First championship bout, AJ. Let's break it down. You know, I want to spend some good amount of time on this one. Valentina Shevchenko versus Jessica Andrade, man. We got Bata Esteca over here, man. AJ, I have a question for you off the bat. During George St. Pierre's historic 12 title defense run that spanned 10 years from 2007 to 2017, he won 8 of those fights via decision. And a lot of people called him very boring, right? We appreciate him now, but during the time it was boring and it was like, oh, what are we talking about? We don't want to see this anymore. He only had 4 submissions or knockouts in that run. If Shevchenko, is Valentina Shevchenko headed towards that GSP territory with a very convincing win here on Saturday, man? She's got 3 decisions, 2 knockouts so far. And it looks like she's unbeatable. Nobody can even get to her level. Like, this is a true testament of there's levels to this thing. So what do you think about that? You think she entering that GSP territory?
Yeah, I do. I really do think she is because, man, she's, besides Amanda Nunes, she's been basically untested. Not like almost untouched even, you know. She really, Jennifer Maia gave her a little bit of trouble in the second round of her last fight. But, man, Shevchenko is just looking so dominant that it's like you said, kind of how GSP was, where he's a little boring. Like, sure, you know, he's still putting people out, hurting people, but not like he used to be. Not like even the lady I just mentioned, the Lioness, man, she's putting people out. Yeah. So you see Valentina Shevchenko just piecing people up, having a nice little sparring sesh, kind of just point fighting, not really looking like she cares or like is under pressure to win. She's just out there having a nice little Sunday walk. It kind of makes the fans a little boring. I do think she needs to, I don't know. I have it in my notes. I think she needs to step up and, you know, get up in some weight and fight the Lioness again, because there's no way Amanda Nunes is coming down. But it's hard when you've been so dominant that people don't even really remember. And I think she almost fell into that kind of trap against Jennifer Maia where she thought like, you know, this isn't even a fight. This is, you know, it's all good. And then kind of got a little in trouble in the second round. She was on her back. She was struggling a little bit, ended up getting it out, you know, doing what Chev does and pieced her up. But it's hard to say, man. What do you think?
Well, first, I like what you said, man. You said it's like almost like she hasn't even been in this ain't even a fight, right? Joe Rogan, he said it famously. I wrote this down because I liked it so much. He was like, Valentina Shevchenko hasn't been in a fight in a long time. He's like, we view these matchups as basically like walking executions, right? Like, who are we feeding to Shevchenko next? Oh, okay, she got to eat. All right, you know what I'm saying? Like, so it's killer's row out there, right? But what I think was so impressive about that fight against Jennifer Maia is that she pulled the John Jones approach, right? So what did John Jones do against, I think it was Dominic Reyes? He was basically like, I'm going to fight you at your own battle. Or it was Thiago Santos. He was
Santos.
Yeah, he's like, instead of doing wrestling, I'm just going to outstrike this dude who's supposed to be this great striker, right? And he did. And it was a very close victory, but it's different when you take into consideration. And yeah, we can go back and forth like, you know, but ultimately, what's the most impressive is saying that I'm so good, I don't even want to use my best weapons, man. I'm going to use your best weapons and beat you still. So what Valentina Shevchenko did in the first round of that Jennifer Maia fight, she took Jennifer Maia down by countering her with a hip toss within the first minute of the fight, and she ground and pound for the entire round, right? Second round, what happens? Jennifer Maia, she comes in with pressure. What does Valentina Shevchenko do? She blasts a little hook, uses that to get the clinch, and then hip toss, get her on the ground, right? Now, it backfired, and Jennifer Maia won the second round, but ultimately, what I saw was Valentina Shevchenko entering that territory and just saying, I'm just going to beat you at your game. You're this big Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner. All right, what's up? Let's see what you can do, right? So I just think that Valentina Shevchenko is looking for ways to challenge herself at this point, because that's the narrative that we're saying, right? We're saying, oh, well, how is she going to motivate herself? When you're the champion, it's hard to motivate yourself. But I'll tell you what the biggest motivation is, keeping that gold around your shoulder. That's what the biggest motivation is. So I think there is absolutely no lack of motivation right here for Valentina Shevchenko. But listen, the person she's fighting, man, is no slouch. And as we saw with the Rose Namajunas fight, she can be, or the first Rose Namajunas fight, she can be out of the fight the entire fight and still win, because she has one punch knockout power. Rose said it herself. She says that with Jessica Andrade, I've never been hit like that before in my entire life. No one has hit me the way that Andrade has. And listen, man, Andrade is a little wrecking ball, man. So the odds right now, AJ, you tell me what you think about this. Just let's not forget that at the time, I think by the actual fight, Valentina Shevchenko against Jennifer Maia, she was like a minus 2,000 favorite. Something fucking crazy, right? Minus 450 favorite with a comeback of plus 350 for Jessica Andrade, the former strawweight champion, four-time performance of the night winner, four-time performance of the night winner, four-time fight of the night winner. Did you know, Pata Azteca. She has the most fights in women's MMA history, man. So Valentina Shevchenko is not playing around. She's right. So Angela Hill is right behind her at 17. Jessica Andrade has 18 professional fights in the UFC, man. It's incredible. It's incredible. But she does have a couple disadvantages that generally she has in every single one of her fights, right? She's got a 4-inch height disadvantage. She's only 5'1", 62-inch reach, and she had all these disadvantages at strawweight. And then she said, I'm going to move up a weight class and go see what I can do. So you tell me, AJ, man, where do you see this fight taking place? Do you think that Valentina has the stones, has the cojones to say, I'm taking your ass on the ground. Let's fucking rock. Because on one hand, it can nullify the power and it can kind of tire out Andrade. But on the other hand, Andrade is a BJJ black belt, man. You don't want to play on the ground against her. So what do you think?
Yeah, this one to me, Derick, this is the match where I'd be most shocked if it ends up as new, because Valentina Shevchenko has just been on such a tear. But Jessica Andrade, let me take a pause back and go back. What is it? I think it's either one or two of Jessica Andrade's fights. I called her a little Vanderlei Silva, and she has proven me to be completely true. She is literally dropping people with both hands. We saw the Chukagian body hook, man, that just literally made her scream like she had an appendix burst or something, you know. But then Jessica Andrade, I think, needs to do that, apply that pressure, hit her with something hard, get on the inside, get that clinch going, but also just dirty box. Give the old adage to me in this fight, and what I'm hoping as a fan happens, is the old adage stay true, where you got to brawl a technical fighter. And if Jessica Andrade can get on the inside, brawl, not get hurt, but hit Shevchenko like she hit Rose Namajunas, where she's never felt that in her entire life. Like, bro, I just got hit by a man, but this woman is 5'1". Like, what the fuck? How is that power there? I think that right there needs to happen. But personally, I see this fight being controlled a lot by Shevchenko, really taking advantage of the height aspect, going in, and then whenever Andrade comes in, rushes in, she's just going to take her down, put the thing to her, put the belt on her waist, you know, hold her to the ground, beat her up. It's to me kind of hard for Andrade, just because Shevchenko has just been so dominant. We haven't even seen anybody kind of sweat her except for that second round in the Maya fight, and then we saw the rest of the fight. She'd literally just change the entire narrative. Yeah, I hope that answers your question where I think it's going to go.
No, ultimately, you did answer the question, man. I think Jessica Andrade does have an opportunity to win this fight, man. So I see it going two ways, AJ. I see that on one hand, Andrade has the perfect style for Valentina to just pick her apart from the outside. On the other hand, Valentina has this tendency to sit there, wait. And when she does get her strikes, she kind of will like get into that clinch. And it's just this natural habit, kind of like what we saw against Justine Kish with Tracy Cortez, where it's like, why are you clinching? Like, no, don't. But it's just like her natural tendency is to get in there, clinch up. And if she does that, Jessica Andrade not only could smash her with the body shots, because you're absolutely right, she has crippling body shots, but she also slam Valentina on her head like she did against Rose Namajunas, right? We saw that multiple times. Andrade had her arm threatened with the Kimura lock, out of that kind of like pickup position, and multiple times she says, I don't care, I'll just smash you. Like, I will risk my arm, I'll just smash you, it doesn't matter. But this is the thing, man. I think that Valentina Shevchenko, right, I think a finish here is very unlikely, but it can happen. And the reason why it's unlikely is because Valentina Shevchenko is a very highly decorated kickboxer before she made her MMA debut, and she had a kickboxing record of 57-2. You know how many finishes she had out of those 57 wins, AJ? Take a guess if you could.
Out of 57 wins, I would honestly guess maybe under 10.
4.
Yeah.
Come on, bro. 4 knockouts. So I think she is a decision fighter, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. She's also a master of sport in Muay Thai, Taekwondo, boxing, kickboxing, and a black belt in judo. 3-time performance of the night winner, 4 successful title defenses, man. It's going to be a long night at the office for Jessica Andrade if she can't land that big blow. And ultimately, Valentina is a southpaw. Jessica Andrade is orthodox. So if a knockout does happen, AJ, I'm going to predict it now. Valentina, she's going to spam that body kick, you know, because it's open all day when it's southpaw versus orthodox. She's going to land that body kick bunch of times, get Andrade thinking about the body kick, and then land that Jessica head kick. Put her out. I think that if a knockout does happen, that is exactly how it will happen, but I don't anticipate that happening because Jessica Andrade, she has, out of her 29 career fights, she's only been knocked out 3 times, which is very impressive, man, because she's fought killers. So at the end of the day, AJ, listen, man, 5 straight title defenses on the line for Shevchenko, or 5 title fights for Shevchenko in her last 5, 2 of them for Andrade. It'll be a great fight, man, but I do think we will be hearing and still at the end of that one, AJ. So this is the big one, the co-main event, AJ. Let's go. They got, listen, should we preface this? I'm a little skeptical. All right, listen, we got Rose Namajunas saying I'd rather, you know, I don't know how to go about this. Anti-communism all day for Rose Namajunas. We got Weili Zhang, who's really brought no politics into this whatsoever, but Rose Namajunas used the famous old verbiage of the 1950s US of A, saying, I'd rather be dead than red, man. She brought the politics in there. She made it personal. Is this going to be, do you think this is personal truly, or do you think that the media is just trying to do whatever they can to put heat on this fight?
I'm so glad you brought this up, Derick. I didn't have any notes on this just because I really don't think it's any deal, any like kind of big issue. I think the media is blowing this completely out of proportion, because how fucking soft is the media?
I know.
We're saying, oh, you're hurting her feelings. Like, oh, don't say those words. You're gonna hurt her feelings. Fuck you. I'm in here to hurt her face. Like, bro, this is the fight game. I'm gonna punch you in the face. Like, it frustrates me so much because good. Yeah. I'm glad she's saying some shit. Like, I'm glad Thug Rose is coming out and saying, yeah, I'd rather be dead than red. Yeah. Like, good, bro. This is what needs to happen. And I'm sick and tired of like Ariel Hawani or even any of these other soft ass reporters just saying stuff like this. Like, okay, you know, the old adage is true. Another old adage for you: sticks and stones may break my bones, man, but they're not gonna hurt me. You know what I'm saying? Words just can't hurt me. And I'm happy Rose Namajunas is actually getting a little fire under her. You know what I'm saying? We've seen the nasty Thug Rose when she was fighting JJ, or then we saw the nice kind of not as aggressive, kind of little downplayed Rose Namajunas against Jessica Andrade. So I would much prefer her to see the fire lit, and whatever way she needs to do that, man, whether it be political, religious, whatever it be, as long as it's, you know, not necessarily super disrespectful. I think, man, fuck it, let it fly.
I'm with you, man. I love that you just said this because I grew up on this statement, and I feel like when I ask people today, especially where I'm at right now over here in Portland, Pacific Northwest, when I say, have you heard this statement? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can't hurt me, baby. They can't hurt me. Come on. Shout out to Goggins. You feel me? Let's go.
Shout out. Hey.
So listen, man, I truly believe in that sentiment, right? That you got to put some type of motivation onto this fight, right? Rose, she's like, I'd love to be friends with her if we could, but at the end of the day, I have Lithuanian heritage, man, and this isn't a political show, so we not hear about the politics, but ultimately, man, do your history. Crack open a fucking book. How about that? Because if you do that, you will see there has been mass oppression by different political governments and different political styles and all of that stuff all around the world, man. Not everyone is the United States of America. And even we got our own problems here, man. So it's like, at the end of the day, listen, these two are about to fight each other. Weili Zhang, 21 fight win streak, man, 21-1. But AJ, I gotta throw a little context onto these 21 victories, AJ, because that's all I'm hearing right now. They're like, do you know when the last time Weili Zhang lost was? It was in 2013, But I'm like, I hear you. Rose Namajunas, she's 9-4, 7-3 in the UFC. Weili Zhang's 5-0 in the UFC. Here's the thing about those 21 wins for Weili Zhang, AJ. The thing about that is that 16 of the 21 wins have come in China, either in China or in South Korea or Thailand. In between those, they were not in America, they were not in the UFC, and they're not against high-level opposition the same way Rose Namajunas was. You look at their records, and you could sit here and say Rose has no chance. Weili Zhang is just so experienced, so dominant. 10 knockouts, 7 submissions, 4 decisions. You can't touch her. She's over there training all the time on Instagram. Come on, right? But at the end of the day, AJ, man, social media isn't real. It's a facade. And Rose Namajunas is an absolute killer, man. Like I said, 7 of her 9 victories have come in the UFC. She literally grew up on the UFC. She's coming out of Tough, out of the Ultimate Fighter, BJJ brown belt under Tony Basile, karate, taekwondo black belt, and listen, she still works with Trevor Whitman over there at 303 Training Center in Denver, Colorado, man, and you cannot discount that, man. So let's break this one down, AJ. First ever Chinese champion in Weili Zhang enjoys a 63-inch reach, but that's 2 inches in terms of a disadvantage for Rose Namajunas. And listen, she's a high striker, man, high volume striker, 6 significant strikes landed per minute at a 45% clip. And I would say the best thing about Weili Zhang is actually not her hands, but her legs, man. Her legs are incredible because she has tree trunk thighs. She could throw kicks at you from every single angle, even though she's a switch fighter, but she generally fights out of the orthodox stance. Her power leg is her left leg. So she throws that inside calf kick all day long, and that's actually how she sets up a lot of her offense, AJ. I wanted to talk about this because that's her rangefinder. A lot of people, it's their jab. A lot of people, it's maybe even the outside calf kick. But for her, she'll do the inside calf kick and then maybe do a switch kick after that or a switch side kick or something like that, right? She gauges a lot of her offense and her timing and her disruptiveness off of that. Now, Rose Namajunas is a master of lateral and in and out movement and head movement, right? Now, Weili Zhang has good movement, but she lacks the pivotal head movement that you need to remain a champion. We must remember, context is important, right, AJ? Did we forget that Rose Namajunas gets slammed on her head? The universe just aligned perfectly so that Jessica Andrade could be the champion and get starched in under a round against Weili Zhang to win the actual championship. So Weili Zhang, if you think about it, she probably had the easiest path to women's strawweight gold in most recent history, right? Rose had to go through Joanna Jędrzejczyk twice, not once, twice, right? And I just watched the Joanna Jędrzejczyk versus Weili Zhang fight again last night. I think Joanna's got a case to be made there, AJ. I'm just gonna say. So this is gonna be a very pivotal matchup, and I think that at the end of the day, this is the most highly anticipated bout on this card for a reason. So who has a striking advantage in this one? They're both strikers, but Rose is somehow, some way just known for her grappling. But I think she's got some of the best boxing in the UFC in the women's division. Talk to me, AJ. What you think?
It's hard because they're both amazing strikers, and I don't know which one I would actually give the advantage to, because they're both a different kind of striker. You know what I'm saying? Like Weili Zhang, she has literally what I wrote down is power and control. Yeah. Like she loves to just walk people down, control the fight, and will drop you with power. I'm glad you noted that thing about her strong leg being her left leg, because she'll hit you. She stands orthodox, can hit you up hard with the right hand, has all the techniques of a good orthodox boxer. But that front leg side kick is something different, man. If you've ever done any karate, you've ever done any taekwondo, and somebody blasts a front leg side kick to your abdomen, you know what it feels like. And it's not fun at all because it's like a power jab. But a power jab to your body that makes you can't breathe right, So Weili Zhang has this power that's just kind of unfelt in the women's division, and I do agree she has had an easy road to it. But we're going to see that road get tested with Namajunas because her proficiencies lie in the fact that she's very smooth, very agile, and hard to hit. That's one of the, she's the Floyd Mayweather of the women's 115-pound division, where she'll literally get in, piece you up, ping, 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 drop out, not get touched, good head movement, like you said, lateral movements on par. Literally one of my favorite fighters, bro. I love Thug Rose. But she, in this fight, it's going to be hard because I think she needs to win by points. She needs to outpoint her, because in that fight you were just talking about with the JJ and the Weili Zhang, there's a point to be made. If this is a point fight, there's a case to be made that JJ won. Yeah. Now, in the eyes of perception of the judges and coming off with that alien head, that it's a little harder to say she won that fight. But I do think that if this was just strictly judged on who was getting the most shots off, and we're going by numbers, man, there's a case to be made. Now, who has a striking advantage? I think they're both very evenly tied all around. And this is another fight to me, Derick, that's a coin toss. This one's hard to pick. Sure. Well, I'm glad that you noted the karate stuff, man, because we need to just ask, just for the people listening, right? The great people at home that are, making this show happen. They need to understand the main fundamental difference between karate and boxing. Now, if I just had to ask you, I know the answer in my head, but just like, what would you say is a fundamental difference between karate and boxing in terms of movement? In and out, side to side, but overall general means, I'd say boxing's more of an art form, a technique, like a practice, whereas karate is kind of made a little bit more for the chaos of the streets. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not as precise. It's very in and out, very lateral, very fast, and everything needs to happen quick, fast, in a hurry, where boxing, man, you set things up, you set up these traps, you play this game back and forth. So it's a little more technical of the boxing aspect, but the biggest difference for movement, I would say, is that lateral sideways, instead of staying with your front leg in the tire and working and shot sideways like that. Like, a lot more getting out of the way, a lot more very distance lateral movement. No, you're absolutely right there, right? And you're totally right, too, in that karate is fundamentally for self-defense in the streets. That's what karate is ultimately for. But you're right. So 2 methods of movement. Boxing is a circle. Karate is a straight line. Right? And oftentimes, how do you get out of the way of a straight line? Move around it. You know what I mean? And we talked about it before, right? It's like, how do you just back straight up when you're getting blitzed in? Because that's what Weili Zhang does. She blitzes in on you, right? So what does Rose Namajunas do masterfully? What does she do against Jessica Andrade? Just move to the side.
That's it. You know what I mean? I move to the side. But the thing about Rose Namajunas is she'll move to the side and move her head and then move in and out all like simultaneously. And she's a master of that footwork. Footwork is incredible. And I even posted up a little clip on the AFC Instagram page of Rose Namajunas after she got hit with a big body shot by Andrade and how she's just able to be creative, fluid, and composed during those pressure situations. Now, the one spot where I can see Weili Zhang taking full advantage of, AJ, is when ultimately Rose Namajunas, at times, if you back her up against the cage and then you put nonstop pressure on her with no regard as to if you're going to get hit back or not, sometimes Rose will panic. And she'll, oh, God, I don't, you know what I mean? She can't get into that fluidity, that flow state. And that's kind of the argument, Aljamain Sterling versus Corey Sandhagen, right? He just blitzed him too quickly. He didn't give him even an opportunity to get into that flow state or whatever. He just put the backpack on him, choked him out. So Rose Namajunas, the one thing we know about her is that her game plan for every single fight is to punch him in the face, take their back, and choke him out. We know that. But is that going to happen against Weili Zhang? I think that grappling against Weili Zhang is going to be a very, very bad idea. And the reason why is because Weili Zhang, she's strong, first and foremost. She's strong as hell. And you'll see that in all of her fights. She can just keep her opponents down, or she can manipulate position without having to use technique. Now, Rose Namajunas oftentimes she'll get on the ground because she tripped or because her opponent just sprawled on her or whatever the case may be. She'll get on the ground, she'll search for the submission. She'll use like the threat of an arm bar to get their opponent to kind of relax a little bit, use her two legs and just kick them off and get back up to the feet. So it's another one of those situations where Rose Namajunas wants to be on the feet unless her stand-up isn't working. Then she'll go for the back or if the opportunity presents itself. But ultimately, we got straight line versus circle movement in this one. Rose Namajunas she does this thing, AJ, where it's a boxing thing where your legs are here, but you're moving your torso up around, and she'll come up, head movement, and then come here, and it'll actually add reach onto her right hand because of the way that in boxing, you lean forward when you strike as opposed to MMA, you got to stay back so you could stuff the takedown. So I think that it's going to be a very much of a coin toss as well, and I do think Rose Namajunas has no path to victory other than a submission or a decision win. Last thing I got, AJ, Weili Zhang in her fight against Rose Namajunas, she is a head hunter and a leg kick hunter. She kicks the lower legs and the head, but not the body. Joanna, she balanced up between body, head, and legs. Rose Namajunas could use that to her advantage and start piecing up that body the same way Joanna Jędrzejczyk did, and definitely could see some strategy, a sound strategy. So let's give our picks, man. AJ, you go first. Who are you going with in this one?
Well, like I said before, Derek, this is a coin toss for me. I genuinely think this fight could go either way. And as a Thug Rose fan, man, I'm hoping I'm eating some crow next week. But I'm going Weili Zhang by decision. Who you got?
So it's funny that you say that because I'm on the exact opposite as you. I'm a huge Rose fan, but I'm also a huge Magnum fan. I think Weili Zhang is such an incredible talent, and her work ethic is just unmatched. It really feels like it. And I've been going back and forth. I was even texting you. I was like, I might change my pick, AJ, man. I've been going back and forth all week long. And all week, I had Weili Zhang winning by a very, very convincing decision. Until I just been watching too much Rose Namajunas tape, man. She's just too good on her feet. She's just too damn good. So I'm going Rose Namajunas, Thug Rose, by decision. Let's see if it happens. See if it comes to fruition. One of us is going to be eating crow, so we'll see who it is. And here we go, folks. Just so you know, we will be going over the clock for this one, but let's get it off, AJ. We got the middleweight championship. It's a rematch. Kamaru Usman, the Nigerian Nightmare. He's facing off against game-bred Jorge Masvidal for the second time. This time not on 6 days, but actually 6 weeks, right? 6 weeks plus. He got a little extra time in this one, but so does Kamaru Usman, because let's not forget, lest we forget always, right? Kamaru Usman was scheduled to fight Gilbert Burns, right? A BJJ wizard, right? A dude who's got power in his hands, but he's looking to grapple. And on about 6 days' notice, he had to pull out for COVID or whatever the case may be, right? Jorge Masvidal steps in, doesn't get the job done at all, actually loses very convincingly. And really, he only had success in like the first and second round, and then it was kind of game over from there. But nonetheless, we're going to see it again. And AJ, I'm not going to lie to you. This is one fight where I feel like we don't really need to see a rematch. I would have liked to see the Colby Covington rematch more than the game bred rematch personally, because that was a very back and forth fight, right? And it basically fifth round determined it all, because I think it was 2-2 going into the fifth. Now, what can Jorge Masvidal do here against an individual who's on a 17-fight win streak, an individual who is three-time NCAA D2 All-American, right? We got the mini All-American in Usman. Not All-American Chris Weidman, but Kamaru Usman, right? But Jorge Masvidal, he's a veteran, man. 35-14 in MMA, 12-7 in the UFC, and after becoming a journeyman, after losing a lot of decisions, dude, because we call Kamaru Usman a decision machine, right? Because about half of his fights have been won by decision, but half of Jorge Masvidal's fights have also been won by decision. So these are two decision machines in their entirety. Yeah, I don't know, man. What do you got on this one? Tell me how Masvidal can have some success that's any different than the first fight.
I'm glad you noticed or noted the 6-day fight difference versus 6 week, because I genuinely think that everyone's making a big deal of, oh, it's brand new training camp, like he actually has some time to get ready for this one. And I know for sure Masvidal, they were already planning the Usman fight before the Gilbert Burns fight. He fell through, so he probably was already training. Now the big difference is that cardio is going to be there. Hopefully, I say hopefully, because time will tell. Because in the last fight, you already noted it, I only gave Masvidal the first round. I think he was very outclassed the second through the fifth, and it was sad to see as a Street Jesus fan. Now, I think the only way that Masvidal can even get a win is take away Kamaru Usman's what's the word I'm going to say, like his baby, take away his pride and joy, which is the control. If you take away the control from Kamaru Usman, he really doesn't have anything else. We haven't seen him fight off his back. We haven't seen him even strike off the back foot. He's always, and I mean, far be it 18-1, he's controlled every single one of his fights and been dominant, a very, very dominant fighter. Now, can Masvidal do that? Can Masvidal shoot to the ground, put him on his back, out wrestle him, out pressure him, keep the position over the submission, and actually beat up Kamaru Usman? Sounds like quite a fucking task. But I don't know, man. I think the X factor here is just sometimes it's your night, and I agree with you. I do think the Colby fight was a little more close. It was, it was a little more back and forth. It was definitely, I'd rather see that one as the rematch. But hey, man, sometimes the light gets shined on you and you got to perform. And Street Jesus has been a performer since his resurgence. So
no,
what do you think?
I'm with you, man. And I think that this could be really interesting because we could see different tactics from Jorge Masvidal this time around. I think he knew that he had a compromised gas tank going into the first fight. So he says, I got to get it done early. So I'm going to land the big shot. You can't look for the big shot, not in the rematch. You can't look for the big shot. You just got to let it take your time, try to piece him up. We already saw Gilbert Burns was able to wobble Kamaru Usman when they fought last, right? So that goes to show that even though Kamaru Usman, he has a chin, he has improved stand-up game, he has a newfound jab working under Trevor Weidman that just is like a power jab. It's like a triple G, Gennady Golovkin jab. But here's the thing, man. I think that Jorge Masvidal got a little Kevin Holland in him, right? Because what did Kevin Holland say? Kevin Holland, he said, hey, man, Derek Brunson, or Marvin Vettori or Derek Brunson or one of these guys, you know what I mean? Like, this dude's a big wrestler or whatever. They say it's a tall task, but I'm a tall man. Jorge Masvidal is not the tallest man, you know what I'm saying? But he does do some things that Kevin Holland does. And one of those things that he did in the first fight, which was detrimental to him, was looking to land the big one, overextending himself, putting himself in Kamaru Usman's grappling range, and then just smothering his own offense. And we see that time and time again from these strikers who can't just sit back and piece you up and just sit back, da-da-da-da-da, because that's boxing. And these dudes aren't boxers. These mixed martial artists. It's just a different way of striking. So oftentimes it's their own detriment. We see it time and time again, man. He cannot do that if he wants to make this fight competitive, or else we're going to be seeing Kevin Holland versus Marvin Vettori, Kevin Holland versus Derek Brunson again. And that's not what we want to see. However, here's one thing that I have to point out, AJ. Kamaru Usman made a clear note of this to say, ultimately, he didn't break Masvidal's will enough the first time. And he was like, that doesn't sit right with me. That's why I need this rematch, because I need to demoralize him. He says after every fight, what he wants is he wants to control and dominate his opponent so bad that they never even think about wanting to fight him ever again. Now, Masvidal has done the perfect thing, which he's been able to get under Usman's skin. You know what I mean? They had the whole airport confrontation. Do something then. Do something then. It's like, come on, bro. Y'all are pro. Don't do that. Don't do that. You sound like the homies on a street corner, bro. Come on. Do something then. But listen, Street Jesus, he's got a way to get under people's skin. He's got the gift of the gab. He's just a cool guy. He just seems like a guy you'd maybe want to kick it with, one of the homies or whatever, right? And he's a gangster, bro. This dude came up street fighting. He's not scared of any task at hand. And to believe in himself enough to take that fight on 6 days' notice is pretty impressive. Now, the number one thing here that's going to make the difference, AJ, is that Jorge Masvidal actually has a very impressive takedown defense. Very impressive takedown defense. Why? Because he's an ACT wrestler, right? Because he trains with Yoel Romero all the fucking time. And who wants to wrestle Yoel Romero? So did you notice that it wasn't until the third round that Kamaru Usman truly had success taking Masvidal down? However, isn't it just as bad not being taken down, but being smashed up against the cage and just getting your foot stomped, trying to play footsies with them all day long? So this is what it comes down to, AJ. This is my theory for this fight. If Masvidal can control the center of the cage and he can, be patient, take your time and just try to outstrike Kamaru Usman and wait for him to try to just lunge in crazy to grab you or do something, Masvidal could win this fight. Now, I tried to convince myself, clearly, how can Masvidal win? Is he going to win? He has a speed advantage. He has a timing advantage. But I think the thing we forget about Kamaru Usman, and I did it last time, and I will not be making this mistake again, is this dude knows how to win, man. He knows how to squeak out these wins. This dude says, take what from who? Take what from who, bro? You're not taking this from me. That's personal. I posted the clip after he beat Gilbert Burns. Dude was all like, he said he saw what I had and he was going to take it. He's like, how do y'all expect me not to make this personal? Come on. So outside of that, a couple little things that we just talked about, the timing, right? The being able to stuff the takedowns. Who wins this fight, AJ?
This one's another hard one there. This whole card is packed with hard decisions, and that just means it's going to be even a better night for all of us to watch. Yep. Personally, I think Masvidal goes about it like you're saying, maintains distance, plays that patient game, frustrates Usman, gets under his skin, squeaks out a decision win. I mean, I don't get me wrong, I've underestimated, this even before we started the show, man. I've always underestimated Kamaru Usman. Like always, like literally always. And it's hard to say, man, because he can win this fight 100%. It's the cards are well stacked in Usman's favor. I think Masvidal needs to come out heavy, put Usman on his back, and make it a grinder of a fight, man. It's going to be a hard way. It's going to be a hard way either way, however it goes. But I got Masvidal by decision. Who you got?
I'm going to go Usman decision, man. I think that he knows, like, listen, there's just too many paths of victory for Kamaru Usman unless he does the thing that is a detriment to every champion's career and you fall in love with your hands and you forgot what gets you to the dance. You need to do what gets you to the dance. That's how you become a GSP type figure, right? Currently, Usman, he's got 4 title defenses, one behind Valentina Shevchenko, so she's the GSP, not him, not yet at least, you know what I'm saying? And if he wants to continue this streak, he's already talked about he might hang it up after this, man. He even said, he was like, I might just walk away. Like, who's left for me to fight? I'll tell you who. Move up to middleweight, man. I want to see you go and fight Izzy or, Robert Whittaker. But ultimately, AJ, we gave our picks before we hit the fight of the night. I know this is a little extended, but I want to talk about this because it's important, because rarely do we get these 3 title fights on one card, right? That's every couple, X amount of time. Tell me what happens with a dominating Kamaru Usman wins, and then let's talk about what happens with Jorge Masvidal upset, because I'll tell you this much, man. You want to end Street Jesus? You want to get rid of Game Bread? You dominate him 50-44 once again, and there is no more. He can't do any more of the talking. There is no big fights for him anymore. I really enjoy him as a fan, but part of his whole thing is I'm this tough dude who I can come in, I could beat anybody. It's kind of like the Nick Diaz, right? Or the Nate Diaz, where he's just like, it doesn't matter. I'll lose 5 fights in a row and still I'll whoop your ass. You little bitch, like that type shit, right? So what happens if Usman just dominates him 50-44?
I think you hit it on the head, man. I think Masvidal becomes the next Diaz brothers, where sure, he can make titles and we can make all this news about him. He can literally say, like, I want to fight, and he fights Leon Edwards coming up, like that. Like, he literally, whenever Nate Diaz says he wants anything, I think that's going to be the path that Masvidal has in front of him if he gets dominated. Kind of a money fight, kind of just a name, really, because if he's not providing, KO wins, going to dominate Usman, I think he loses a little, not necessarily street cred, but as far as a little bit of favor with the fandom. Now, Usman, if he gets a dominating win, man, this one's hard to say, because I do think I genuinely see him as one of the most dominant champs since we've seen in GSP, because he's boring. I'd rather be boring and remembered as a champ than a blip on the map for my KOs. Yeah. I guess either way would be amazing for a guy who just talks on the YouTube. But, I think Usman, if he gets this in a dominating win, man, I think the only route is moving up. He has to be a double champ. That's the next goal.
Yeah, I agree. And let's talk about the comeback before we get out of here, man. Jorge Masvidal, he springs an upset. He becomes only the second individual to ever beat Kamaru Usman if he gets it done. I find it hard to believe how he's not the biggest thing in the world. He's the next Conor McGregor, kind of, you know what I mean? He's already got all this hype. Fastest knockout in UFC history, 5 seconds. But it looks a little, that didn't age well, because Ben Askren just got knocked out by Jake Paul. So it's like, all right, what does that mean anyway? You need the guy who got beat up by a YouTuber. Like, oh, okay, right? Like I said, Ben Askren, he's tarnishing his legacy, and you know what I mean. You know what I'm trying to say. So, yeah, is he not? Do you think it's even possible to become a Conor McGregor-esque level type figure at this point? And can Masvidal do it if he wins, especially by like a knockout?
Maybe not to the level, because Conor McGregor had that meteoric rise where he was literally doing whatever the hell he wanted, whenever the hell he wanted, stealing old men's phones, slapping people. Like, dude, Conor McGregor was getting wild. And
Yep.
I genuinely think he can get close. I don't know, maybe even bigger, just because the fans have come back, man. We have so much more attention now, but it's hard to get to that meteoric rise. But I do think Masvidal starts to get a little more like the Ronda Rousey route, where he starts to go on, TV shows, gets a little more fame, a little more notoriety. Doesn't necessarily have to fight, kind of how Nate and Nick Diaz are. They just make waves. They just make waves with their name. That's generally where I see Masvidal going path, either winning or losing. He's just going to be a name fighter, but at least if he gets that dub and gets that very dominant win over Usman, then he can really talk some shit with that big name.
I'll tell you, man, it'll be a hell of a way to cap off a career. A man who is 35-14 in his mixed martial arts career. He's been doing it forever. He's the BMF champ. He's the resurrection, right, of game bred. That would just be amazing. I think he would have to just hang it up after that, man. Don't even leverage it into anything. Just be like, I'm the welterweight champ. I just beat the dude who was the most dominant 170 champ outside of GSP. To a degree, not yet. Maybe he needs a couple more wins for that, but nonetheless, man, should be a great slate of fights. And I will just end. If you guys are feeling what AJ is talking about, Kamaru Usman is a -450 favorite, and Gamebred is a +350 underdog, man. So you're gonna win some money if Masvidal can get the job done. But AJ, I think it is that time, right? We just hit all of the fights, all of that good stuff, man. And now,
the all factors considered fight of the night picks are in.
but before you give me this one, I got a new one, AJ. Make it a little more dramatic. I want you to start first. You give me your fight of the night.
My fight of the night this week, my man, Anthony Smith versus Jimmy Crute.
Yep. I like that. That's going to be a banger. That's right here. You got to pay for it, folks, because it is a pay-per-view, but that's a hell of a banger right there. And listen, man, I got to get my joint off too, man. So hold on. Let me hit it. I'm going Dwight Grant versus Stefan Sekulic, man. If you don't know who Dwight Grant is, this is a man who failed himself. He got knocked out in his last fight, but this dude is a monster. He starches people, knocks them out like it's nobody's business. And this individual, Stefan Sekulic, is coming off of a PED violation, man. He's been out for a long time, man. So it'll be a welcome return to the cage, to the octagon. And folks, we gave you the fight of the night. We gave you the sleepers. We talked about the main card. We did everything there was to do. And at the end of the day, we just got one thing left to do for us, folks. And that's to drop a like, subscribe, comment, do all the good stuff. Send this to your friends and let them know UFC 261 is going to be a banger. They're gonna need to tune in. And if you're feeling spry, if you got a little extra change in your pocket, it's like $70, $80 for the pay-per-view. Tune in, all that good stuff, folks. That's what we do. Until next time, we're gonna be sitting here on Monday talking about the preview show. Hope someone's gonna be eating crow. You're not gonna want to miss it. Give us a follow on Instagram at All Factors Considered, or check out the website www.allfactorsconsidered.com. And that's the hub for everything. The home, listen for free, watch for free, all that good stuff. Whatever you want to do, folks. But that's it for us. So until next time, peace.